Pierre reviews the Soup Motoring 230E restoration. So after Jesse works here, by the way, some of you know him, some of you don't, but he's wonderful. Jesse decided to watch the Soup motoring, and specifically wanted to watch their 123 restoration video, which I thought was really an interesting video. So I decided to watch some of it too.
I reckon car restoration has some things in common with getting your hair cut.
You want to try and find someone you can trust to do it right. But if you do find that person, are you going to be able to afford them? Because the big names tend to want the big money, which is fair enough. But if it's out of budget...
And the subject of this video is this guy takes a 230E that has a lot of rust and decides to restore the car. And so my sentiments about cars like the 230E are generally go like this. The 230E is better than, say, a Volvo 240. And sorry, my friend Brandon might be watching this. Sorry, Brandon, it is a little better. But it's not better than a 240D or 300D. The Mercedes diesels are king of the heap with the 123 series. The 230E specifically is a little better than an average car, but it's not God's revelation to motoring either. Those cars had plenty of problems, and the guy who restores one in the video sets out to address a lot of them. And so I wanted to look at this video through the lens of somebody who isn't really that familiar with Mercedes, and I'll give that assessment first. And then I'll give you my assessment as somebody who is familiar with classic Mercedes. So from somebody who's not familiar, this might be called anywhere from car porn to, ASMR content to just really neat technical information. And I think that it's good to showcase this sort of work on 123s on the web to show that even rusty cars are savable. Doesn't mean you have to do everything perfectly. Doesn't mean you have to do everything 100%. But what I do recognize is that the guy who's restoring this 230E is absolutely putting in 100% or 110%, because where he doesn't necessarily have a set of skills, he tries to develop that set of skills. And when you're working at a very high level, like you're fabricating sheet metal panels or doing structural repairs in your car, the learning process is time consuming and painful and wicked. You're going to get hurt, you're going to go to bed achy, you're going to get some blisters, your back's going to hurt. I don't think that the average person is going to undertake it, but for the 5% of you that are watching this video that would attempt something like that and would look at a rusty 123 and say this car still has potential, in my mind that's a win, and I think that it's good to see other people doing it, especially when they're not like some sort of race car builder or lifelong mechanic or whatever. Nothing against Uncle Tony, nothing against the corn cob, but the average individual can probably exceed the level of being a quote-unquote lifelong mechanic by putting some skin in the game and actually ramping up or building their experience in a short time because of intense focus. Now I want to share with you my perspective of this as a professional mechanic, whatever that means. I'm probably not as professional as I want to be, but I do this every day. So where the video really gets me excited is the fact that, again, this is a car that I can relate to. It's not the best of the 123s, but it's still worthy of restoration. The videographer, the restorer didn't go out and buy the best car and bring a trailer and make some stupid video about it. They didn't go through and try to explain the car like Doug DeMuro regularly fails to most of the time, especially on Mercedes. He took an example of a car that wouldn't pass the MOT and needed pretty much everything, and did a great job repairing all of its structural parts. So I'd say the structural repairs are pretty outstanding. Here's what I saw that I didn't like. I didn't like the fact that he painted the brake calipers. Jesse told me about this. I went back and watched it, and I said, yeah, the brake calipers were painted. You're really supposed to rebuild them. Even if you don't split them, try to blast the outside so you get all the rust off and then paint them. Number 2, the part selection. So if you're going to go to this level, you should use genuine Mercedes parts when possible. It's really funny how people in these videos are on the internet. We'll just say internet people. They get one genuine Mercedes part and they have like 50 parts from Euro Parts. They're acting like they have like the crown freaking jewel. Really, you should just see Mercedes parts bags everywhere in the shop, like our shop. You like putting one Mercedes part in with a sea of Euro Parts or Febi or Meili garbage does not suddenly lift all those parts to the higher level. Rather, it just, it says, are you really building this car as like a 20-year car or a 30-year car? Are you building this as like a 2-year car? Because that's what happens when you use inferior parts. Consistently, we find that all those Asian-made replacement parts go bad between 6 months and 2 years after they're installed. So from that perspective, and from the perspective of a mechanic, I think that he could have done better and spent a little bit more money on Mercedes parts to complement the insane amount of grueling, painful labor that he put in. Is the 230e worth it? Well, sure. I mean, I've driven a right-hand drive 230e, and it was a very pleasant experience. I don't know if it's the car that I'd want to own for the rest of my life, but as far as owning and driving one goes, sure, it does everything just as well as, or probably better than, any other car I could think of from the era. Short of maybe, I don't know, I don't want to go there, but it definitely did better than a W201. How's that? And maybe a W124. I do think, though, that when you're watching this kind of content, you should always remember that there's a way to improve. We always have to challenge ourselves for improvement. If you're not challenging yourself to improve your business, your life, the quality of your work, whatever you're doing, then you're not living life to the fullest. And that would be, I would say, the room for improvement on the 230e project from the soup, that there needs to be better selection of and better choices of parts and more thoroughness when addressing mechanical assemblies. Like maybe remove and reseal the steering box or something like that too. Alright, so if you enjoyed this video, please like, share, and subscribe. And if you're restoring your own classic Mercedes, I applaud you. Just don't cut corners, because a cut corner can lead to much pain and suffering later on down the road. It's easier just to do everything right the first time. It's only taken me about 18 years to learn that. So I thank you guys for watching. Thanks for putting up with me, and enjoy your classic Mercedes.